Welcome back to my channel. If you're new here, my name is Laura and I run a small handmade sewing business now for the last 3 years. Today I'm going to talk about my adventures in Brimfield. It was my first time to Brimfield. It's a big market. It happens in May, July, and September up in Springfield, Massachusetts. It is one of the biggest flea markets in the Northeast. I was able to get some good scores, some sewing, vintage sewing items, and some fabric. So come along as I show you what I got. So for my first day, I arrived actually from Hawaii and went straight to Brimfield, and we went to Maysfield. So Maysfield opens on Thursday of the week of Brimfield. And here I got just some sterling silver thimbles. This first one is really nice because it has carving into it. And the second one is what caught my eye on the table actually, is it has gems in it. And it actually fits my fingers. I have very small fingers, so often thimbles are too big, but these ones actually fit well. Later on that day, I went to a tent that was kind of a knick-knackery of things. And they had 2 boxes of fat quarters. And this one caught my eye. This is more than a fat quarter. This is about a yard, but it has a stain. So it was in the fat quarter box for $2. So I'll use this. Actually, I'm going to reupholster my chair in the craft room. So make it look nicer and add some more cushioning because there's not a lot of cushioning in those chairs. And then I got a couple different fat quarters. So I have this lovely floral piece, another light pink floral piece, and then a blue floral piece. I didn't do a lot this day. It was one of the hottest days at Brimfield, so I would go out and then come back to my cousin's stall and then go out and come back to my cousin's stall because it was just too hot. I did learn a lot. Maysfield is a collector's field. They know their stuff on that field. They will wheel and deal, but not too much in the morning. They'll do that more in the afternoon. But I found one fabric lady, and she knew her fabric. I didn't realize this. If I have a chance, I'll try to put in a sample piece video here. But this is French printed fabric, like how they would print on paper, from my understanding. Apparently, that's worth a lot of money. She was charging $20 a fat quarter because it's rare and the most detailed printed fabric you can find. Just as a heads up. But what I found is that most people with clothing, or if you saw vintage quilts, had a box of fabrics, and they weren't charging that much for fabrics, except for the one, the only woman actually on Maysfield that was selling specifically just fabrics. So that was a good way to find some vintage fabrics that didn't cost so much. And then the next day, we went to the second field here, and my cousin brought me to one of his friends' booths who sells books. My cousin's a book vendor. I'll put up some information here for you about him if you want to go to his show in a couple weeks. But his wife gets a bunch of knickknacks, and in particular sewing items. So as you can see here, this is a 7-yard by 36-inch piece of duck cloth. My guess was it was to be used for the covering of curtains. So not like a full curtain, but just the top row on the curtains. And it has actually the first 2 cookbooks ever produced are on this piece of cloth, American Cookbook 1 and the Boston Cookbook. It's a very, very nice piece of fabric. I cannot wait to make totes out of this, and maybe some other like shoe bag items or book covers even for cookbooks from this. And then I have a bunch of these little knickknacks here. These knickknacks are thimbles again. She had some really nice thimbles. And again, the one piece here, you can see it's very detailed, fits my finger to a T, which is great. And then I kind of got the other ones just because they were interesting thimbles. And again, the vintage thimbles I find are better than the newer thimbles. The newer thimbles I find bend really easy, and sometimes I get the needle to poke right through them, which is not great. And then these 2, I didn't realize this used to be souvenirs, but honestly, these 2 things here, I didn't realize you used to get these as souvenirs. They are measuring tapes. So this one is a metal measuring tape, much nicer case. And then this one's a fabric measuring tape. This one's in good shape. A lot of the ones I found at Brimfield are not in good shape for the tape measure themselves on the inside. but everyone had to sew their clothes. So it makes sense that these would be souvenirs. And now my best find of all of Brimfield is this little piece here. This is bone carving of elephants on a piece of wood to put your embroidery floss. It is a beautiful piece. I do have to melt off some old glue here from a piece that was attached to the top, but it is intact. The horn isn't, the trunk isn't broken. It just is a piece of glue from whatever had been on his trunk to begin with. So I'm gonna try to melt that off. I'm gonna see how that goes. Hopefully I'll be able to get it off. Now, continuing the day, I went to, it is, how do I say? It's a big tent filled with a bunch of vendors for clothing. And in that tent, I found this little piece of vintage applique. So I thought I would add that to some shorts or jeans. It's a really pretty piece. And I found this, some Hello Kitty fabric. Now this is not vintage. This was actually printed this year by Sanrio. The lady had it for 15 and she gave it to me for 10, which was awesome. But it's almost 3 yards of fabric. And I've had kids been asking me, oh, do you have any Hello Kitty? Do you have any Elsa? So I can now say, yes, I have some Hello Kitty for them. So I'll make some headbands and scrunchies from that. And maybe I'll make even some pencil cases for Christmas for the kids because they absolutely love Hello Kitty where I'm from. And then I also found, where is it? I also found just a leather belt. I know, not related to sewing at all, but I needed a good leather belt. I'm going to see if it fits. It may only be a men's. If it is, I'll give it to my husband. But I needed a leather belt to wear. Otherwise, it was going to, how do I put it? I am sick of replacing my belts every couple months because they go bad. So leather should last longer. And then finally, my last booth, I was literally just about to go back to my cousin's stall because it was so hot and we had to leave because I had to go do some business further upstate. I found this stall full of fabric just thrown everywhere. So nothing like on Macefield where the woman was super organized with her fabric. This was fabric in boxes everywhere, fabric stacked on tables. There was just so much boxes everywhere, boxes on the ground, boxes like 3 deep back behind the tables. So from here, I got a couple of pieces. I got this big piece of linen. There are some stains here and there, but for everything at this stall, I paid $34 and I got 7 pieces. So I paid very little. I paid a little over $4 a piece for everything I bought. So if there's some staining on this, I don't really care. I'll cut around it and use it how I can. I purposely bought this to make some clothing. I love linen, but I find today's new linen is not as good as old linen. So I can now make some clothing for myself from that. I also got a zipper foot, adjustable zipper foot. I'm not going to show that because it's already packed away because I didn't want to lose it. But he had a whole box of parts pieces. And I was actually looking, my mom needs a new strike plate for her 35-year-old sewing machine that we have yet to find. So I started digging through this box because it had a bunch of strike plates and other parts pieces. And in the bottom of that box, I found tailor's rulers. So we have the plastic one, which does have a crack. So I'm hoping I can get it home okay. But I also have 2 metal ones in the 2 different curves. And I've been looking for these for a while. If you sew clothing, you know that tailor's rulers can be fairly expensive. So I'm very glad I found these. I also got this absolutely gorgeous piece of fabric, about 1 yard. I cannot wait to make, either going to make scrunchies from it, because it does have a very large selvage. So I'm probably going to end up making just scrunchies from it, but I was thinking about making a kimono top also, but it's kind of pushing it on the width I need because of this large selvage, but it's absolutely gorgeous. It is the only fancy or luxury fabric I found anywhere on the fields. Most of it was just cottons. So this is very awesome to have found. And as I continued to dig through this box, I found a tailor's press, which is great. I was gonna make my own, but to actually be able to find a tailor's press is awesome. I do have to recover it. As you can see, there's lots of holes from it. I'm gonna have to try to clean it up some. If you guys have any suggestions on how to clean this, it'd be awesome, because it's canvas, duck cloth material, so I don't know if I'm gonna be able to clean it. If not, whatever, I'll just recover the whole thing. But yeah, so this was awesome to find. He actually had two. I chose one that was more tapered, so I could use both ends. The other one was kind of a fatter piece, like fat all the way instead of being tapered. So hopefully I'll be able to use it to press shoulders now, because that was a big issue when I made the Aloha shirt and matching dress that my husband and I wore to a wedding earlier this year. I couldn't press the shoulders very well, so the seams aren't as crisp as I would like. So hopefully this will help. And then finally, I picked it up just so I'd have some more webbing. I don't think I'll be able to use the color with anything in particular, but I figured I can dye it darker, if anything, so I have some webbing because it was cheap. And it's old webbing, old cotton webbing, which is becoming hard to find, but it's also, let me pull the pin out. Well, the pin just broke. All right, let me just pull it off the pin. I'll have to get some tweezers later to pull that out. It's thinner webbing. So I've been having a hard issue finding full cotton thin webbing. Don't get me wrong, on the XL totes, the thicker webbing is nice, but on the smaller totes, I would prefer a thinner webbing because I feel like it's too heavy on the smaller totes. So I'm gonna give this a try with some like practice fabric to see how it sews. And then I think I'm just gonna take the whole lot and just dye it probably brown or black. We'll see with some test pieces how that goes. So yeah, that was Brimfield. I will highly recommend that. One, bring either a cart or backpack to Brimfield. Bring cash. Cash is king. The cell phone signal was not great at Brimfield, even though they had an extra tower. Everyone in our party had like different cell phone carriers. It didn't matter. Cell phone signal wasn't great. I didn't find anyone using Square. Most people used Venmo if they did accept cashless payments, but cash is king, and they're able to wheel and deal with you more. On another note, make sure you bring lots of water. It's not usually this hot in September, but July tends to be very hot. Bring lots and lots of water to drink. There are food vendors, but I found that there was the main area for food vendors and then along the streets. But again, water is better than drinking lots of juice or sugary drinks, so I highly recommend lots of water. Do know that certain fields open certain days, so I wouldn't go for just one day. I would try to be there maybe Wednesday through Saturday, because different fields will open each day, and so there'll be more and more vendors opening. And you definitely can't do Brimfield all in one day. I even missed some fields because I was only there for about a day and a half. So make sure to schedule extra time to actually do all the fields. I would say it would take at least 2 days to do all the fields. If you're really looking at all the stalls, maybe 3 days. But yeah, I do recommend that you go to Brimfield, and trust me, you'll find some awesome treasures of anything you can think vintage. It is really cool. Well, thanks for watching this video. And next time I will be talking about Swanson's Fabric Stash House and what I got there. Until then, goodbye.